Okay, so let's finish up this this chapter. The existence of others. We're looking at the look, section 4. We're halfway through this one, and Sartre asks here, what is the being of being for others? So the relation of the me, that ego outside myself, that ego for the other. What's the relation of that me to the other? So he starts out by saying that what we have here is something similar to what we had with the relation between the for itself and the in itself, the for itself and being. That is to say, an internal negation. So the for itself has to be as not being this thing. That's the negation. And the same thing, we see the same thing happening for the other. For the other to be, I must be the one who is not the other. There must be an internal negation going on here. The difference between for itself and the in itself and the for itself and another is that this new negation that we're looking at now is reciprocal. So, as we've already seen, I am not the other. I negate him or her. But the other also negates me. The other acknowledges to him or herself that he or she is not me. So there's a reciprocal negation going on here. And this double negation is therefore unstable. So only one of us can win, for want of a better word. Either I make myself not be the other, and the other becomes an object for me, or the other succeeds in making themselves not be me, in which case I become an object for them. But if this is possible, if this kind of interaction is to be possible, then the other must have already made me an object for him or her. That is to say that one of us must already be an object for the other before this whole thing can even begin. So something is created here, that ego, that me, that self for others, exists prior to this relation between the other and me. And this self is therefore the bond between the other and me. And it's the bond as me as my being outside. So before I can even investigate this whole notion of being for others, there must be an initial interaction between the other and me. So let's say that the other makes me an object, then my self for others must have already emerged. And this self for others is precisely the bond that exists between the other and me. And this bond is me being outside of me. So it's my being outside. So the being of this self as object for the other, is not in itself, but nor is it for itself. Sartre says it's precisely my being for others, this being which is divided between two negations with opposed origins and opposite meanings. So the being of being for others, this self, this me, is like a bond. It's a being which is caught in the middle between two negations, two opposing negations. So when this happens, when I notice the other as subject, the other makes me an object, that is a motivating force for me to reapprehend myself as a free, transcendent self. And this motivating force that I feel is experienced by way of emotion. And Sartre gives us 3 examples. Fear, which is the discovery of my pure and simple object state, insofar as it is surpassed and transcended by possibles which are not my possibles. So we have that sense of fear when we're being looked at, and that arises because we discover ourselves as an object, as a surpassed being. Our possibles have been transcended by other possibles. That's what fear is. Shame is the second one. And this is the original feeling of having my being outside, engaged in another being, and as such without any defense. Not guilty as this or that object, but as object in general. And again, that's like being caught naked, I guess, in a way. You're exposed with yourself outside yourself. You have no control over it anymore, and that generates this feeling of shame. Another feeling which motivates us to reapprehend our original selves is pride. And this is where we try to apprehend, or where I try to apprehend myself as affecting the other by my object state, without ceasing to hold the other as subject. So this is where I try to present myself in a favorable light, all while I am an object for the other, for this other who is subject to me. So this particular experience, this particular emotion is bad faith, Sartre says, for 2 reasons. First, it's proud of being what it is, and only what it is, which is to say, and in itself. It tries to sell itself as just this self, which is for the other, as if it has no transcendent self, and that's bad faith. And it's also bad faith because it tries to act on the other. It tries to bring an effect into the world like a transcending subject, like a transcendental subject, all the while being nothing more than an object which is for the other. And that is also bad faith. So that pride comes with 2 pride is bad faith for those 2 reasons. So Sartre goes on to say that the other is never known as an in itself like all other instruments in my world. Rather, they are always, the other can only ever appear to me as a transcendence transcended. The other as subject can never be known. So there is no problem of the knowledge of the other as subject. So in that, I think Sartre is just saying what he said earlier. There is no proof. We can never have a proof of the other as subject. Whenever we get to know them, at first they manifest as an object, and if we try and surpass them, they know us as an object, and if we try and surpass them, their possibilities, their transcendence, then we can know them as an object. But it's always as a transcendence which has been transcended, a set of possibilities which I am surpassing towards my own possibilities. So we never know the other as a pure object in the world, like we know this table or that chair. So the last thing I have here is that the other as object may always make him or herself known as, or may always remake him or herself as an other as subject. They may always flip that around and look at me, catch me in the look, and reduce me to object, making themselves subject. And that causes Sartre to say that the other is an explosive instrument which I handle with care, and my relations with the other as object are essentially made up of ruses designed to make him remain an object. And that really sums up Sartre's account of the other. It's conflict based. It's all about trying to preserve our own free transcendence, and the only way we can do that is by reducing the other to a part of my world, reducing them to an object. Finally, Sartre asks, why are there others? And this will be the last section, the last thing I have to say on this chapter. So he says that we've already looked at the way that the for itself tries to know itself. First, it did that through that reflecting dyad, which it is. The for itself is that upsurge of the for itself, and that, as an attempt to know itself, failed. Then it tried again through reflecting on itself as a dyad, that reflecting dyad, and that also failed. It was unable to know itself as object. And so it tries again. That's what being for others is. It's another attempt at the for itself trying to know itself as an object for itself. So being for others, which is another internal negation. The totality here is I and the other. So these are the two poles of this reflective act. And so I perhaps am the reflecting for itself, and the other is the reflected for itself. So what I'm trying to do is know myself as what I am by incorporating the other into my reflective act. The problem is that these two negations, me and the other, can't be brought together into a complete synthesis. We're too separate. We're completely separated. So we can never achieve together what I've always tried to achieve as a for itself on my own. So this results in a failure again, and it wouldn't be being in nothingness if we didn't finish up with another contradiction. And so this is the contradiction for this chapter. Being for others can be only if it is made to be by a totality which is lost, so that being for others may arise. So there it is, right? Being for others can only be if it's made to be by this totality, this synthesis of me and the other, where one of us is reflecting, the other is the reflection, this subject-object dyad. Being for others can only arise with this synthesis, this totality. But it's a totality which is lost precisely so that being for others can arise. Because being for others involves two separate consciousnesses, one subject and one object. So it's another classic contradiction which sums up being in nothingness, huh? So that's being for others. Chapter 1, the existence of others. Next video we'll look at the second chapter, and if you're still going, good job. This is crazy. It's a crazy project, and I hope that you're getting some benefit out of it. I think I am. Either that or I'm just confusing myself more and more with each video. Anyway, hopefully you're not. So cool. I'll see you next time.